All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. I would like to thank you all for your best concert and Spotify recommendations. Very much appreciated. I will have quite a bit to do after today's webinar, and I'm excited about it. But I'm also excited to talk to you guys today about studio projects. This is our Webinars from Home series. My name is Alex Milanovich. I'm a senior trainer based in our Chicago office, currently based from my home office. I'm part of our global services team. I do have several of them on the phone with me today. I would like to thank them so much for helping out. As I go through this training today, if there's anything that you're like, oh, I didn't catch that, was that a right click or a left click, or you just weren't sure how that functionality was working, you have a question about whatever we're going through today, feel free to find that questions panel in your GoToWebinar dialog box. Go ahead and type that in there, and then one of my really awesome, really knowledgeable global services team members are going to be able to help you out. That's going to allow me to keep trucking along through all of this content as we're going to go through today. I only have 30 minutes with you. I wish it was more. There's a lot of information here, but this is really just to help you guys get started. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now, we did build these courses just out of everything that was going on. We wanted to be a live resource, and we're doing them and running them daily. What that means to you is that tomorrow there's another one on a brand new topic. What that also means is that you can come back next Thursday and hear the same content over again. And we know that sometimes that repetitive learning is important when you are tasked with learning and taking on a new software, and that's great too. So I had you guys rating yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 in that questions panel, 1 being my newer users, 10 being my office expert. I know you guys can't see what everyone's responses were, but I was able to, and I'll tell you that I got just about every number. Some people even rated themselves at like a 6.5. I appreciate that you weren't fully ready to commit to that 7, but you knew that you were better than a 6. I can definitely respect that half of a point you gave yourself. What that means to you is that I got a wide range of different expert levels on the call today. I'm going to do my best to help all of you as we go through, but I only have 30 minutes. So for my 1s and 2s, this content might be a little quick. It might be a little fast, and that's okay. What I want you to be able to take away from today is like, wow, that is a lot of cool stuff that I can do with Bluebeam Review. For my more experienced users who are maybe self-taught, hopefully you'll be able to take away some tips and tricks, things you didn't know, or you weren't able to get to some of these buttons you didn't know that they existed, or an easier way to do that. So for my newer users, I want to encourage you to take what you can away from today, but also come back next Thursday if you want to hear this content again. You might need it one more time to be able to take away from this, go around, play with the software, come back next Thursday and see us. If you were sent this link from a colleague or a friend, or somehow it just ended up in your inbox, that's awesome, that's great. We love that the word is getting out and these classes are becoming pretty popular, but I don't want you to miss the next one. So head over to our bluebeam.com webpage. You're going to find yourself on the events page. You can click on that COVID-19 banner and be able to sign up for any of our additional classes. You can also follow us on social media, any of our platforms there. Our marketing team is doing an awesome job about keeping you guys updated with the courses that are coming, the dates and times for all of that. On those platforms there. So we're going to go ahead and get started with our agenda. So we are going to talk about studio projects today. First things first, we're going to talk about how we can create a studio project, how I can start that process. And then once I've created it, I can then decide what I can do within it, who can come into it, and then what they can do when they get into that studio project. And then we'll talk a little bit about just the basics of studio functionality, how I can check in and check out files. We'll talk about that here in just a second. And then lastly, we'll finish with my revision history, which is really how I can tell who's been in that document, what they've done when they were there, which is really helpful as we go through this. If this is your first class with me, or you just haven't known anything about Studio before, that's okay, that's cool. We're going to talk about that today. Really quickly, I like to just kind of give you an overview of Studio in general. There's 2 parts to it. There's Studio projects, which we're going to talk about today, Studio sessions. If you joined me yesterday, thanks for coming back. We talked about that yesterday. If you missed it, join me next Wednesday. We're going to talk about it again. But today's class is about studio projects. I like to kind of call this out in the beginning here. Studio projects is going to be for that longer term solution to be able to kind of share your files. Studio sessions is going to be a shorter term option that's going to be PDF based only and allowing you to mark up everybody at the same time. Studio projects is going to be one person marking up at a time to be able to kind of control those documents that are happening in a project. So the way that I like to think about our studio project is think about it like your office library. So the same way that when you were in the 4th grade, you would go to elementary school and you would go to the library and you would grab a book, you would check out that book, you'd go home, you'd read that book. When you were done, you'd come back to the library and you'd check that book back in. That exact same process is how studio projects works. Replace the word book with drawing, replace the word read with markup, and you have studio projects. What this is allowing me to do is I can store any file type at any file size in one place. I can then control who has access to be able to check out that file and mark it up and then check it back in. And then all of that is also tracked within my software when they checked it out, what they marked up, and that process. And so we'll talk about that today. The reason I like to say that it's a library is because of just that. I can store just about anything that I want to in there, no file limits on types or sizes, and then I can store everything there and I can control it. So I can invite people or I can just hold everything in one place. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully that gives you enough of about how Studio Projects works. Now we'll talk about it in Bluebeam Review. Now I am using the 2019 version of Bluebeam Review. If you're using the 2018 version, your screen is probably going to look very similar to mine. I think there's one icon that's different. I will point that out when we get there. But for the most part, you should be able to kind of follow along with us. Now, your screen might look different than mine, and that is okay. Again, for my new users, it might be easier for you to kind of just take notes, watch, and see. For my more experienced users, you might be able to follow along with me if you want to kind of walk through this together. So the way that this is going to work is I am going to find my studio icon. It's going to be that little house or that building icon. I'm really not sure. There's always a debate around Bluebeam if it's a house or it's a building. So whatever you'd like to call it, it's gonna look like this icon here on the left-hand side of my screen there. If you can't find yours, no worries. Just right-click somewhere on this panel here. You're gonna hover over that option called Show, and you're gonna left-click one time on that word that says Studio. It's gonna automatically open that panel for you. You'll notice there's a couple options here. There's an option to sign in. There's also an option in the right-hand corner of this panel that shows the option of disconnected. I'm going to go ahead and select on that outlet plug there. Once I select on that one time, it's going to take me into my sign in options. If you have ever been in Studio before, whether that was sessions or projects, it's the exact same Bluebeam ID. So if you were with me yesterday and you logged in with a brand new account, you are all set up and you are ready to go. You don't need another one. You're going to go ahead and type in your password. If you are brand new to Studio, you have never been in a Studio project or a session before, I want you to hit on that option that says create account. When you create an account, you're going to pretty much follow these prompts. It's self-explanatory, but I'll walk you through it here just in case you have questions about it. So the first one is your first name and your last name, really simple. And then the next option is going to be your display name. The display name is really going to be how people are going to be able to identify who made what markups within the software. So the example that they give here is first initial, last name. You can also feel free to do your first name, last initial. I, personal opinion, like to be able to tack on either my job title or my company name at the end of that. That way, if I'm Sarah S., and there's quite a few of them out there, we don't have to worry about which one it was that made that markup, because either I'm going to have Bluebeam at the end of it or trainer at the end of it, and people are going to be more easily able to track me down and know that it was me that made that markup. So for your display name, highly recommend putting some sort of dash company name or dash your job title there, just to kind of help track that process down. Next, you're going to use your email. This should be your company email address. This is also what we're going to refer to as what we call your Bluebeam ID. It's going to be pretty interchangeable, your email and your Bluebeam ID, when you see those options there. It's the same thing. This is how we're going to be able to alert you. So if you're not currently in the studio active at that time and somebody alerts you to something, we're going to be able to send you an email. So you're going to want to make sure it's something that you're actually paying attention to, not just this junk Gmail that things go to. So make sure you're using your company email here as you go through. Next, you're going to fill out your password. Your password is going to be one of those more secure options. It does have to be at least 8 characters long, 1 upper, 1 number, 1 letter, and 1 symbol. So go ahead and type that in. You're going to type it in again. When you hit this option that says create account, you're going to be prompted with a new dialog box that's got our terms and conditions on it. Scroll through that all the way at the very bottom of your screen. You're going to see an option that says you accept. go ahead and click on that option. Another dialog box is going to prompt. It's going to have 2 steps to it. The first one says you must verify your email address within 24 hours. Don't do it now. We only have a few more minutes left. We're already a third of the way through this class, so I want to keep going. I don't want you to miss anything, but you will get an email that says you need to verify your email account. We want to make sure you're not a robot. And then the second option says that you're going to sign in. As soon as you hit on that blue link that says sign in, you're going to be back to a screen that looks like this. Type in that password that you just created. My, oh my, I really hope you hadn't already forgot it. And then you can always check that box that says keep me signed in. That'll avoid you from entering that password the next time you open projects. Now, your screen is 100% going to look different than mine. Your list might be longer than mine. Your list might be shorter than mine. That's okay. What I want you to pay attention to is at the very top here to the right of the word studio. You should have 2 icons. What I want you to find is that very first icon. It looks like a piece of paper with some writing on it. You want to make sure that that one's got a blue background to it. Now, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to show you what an existing project looks like. I'm kind of going to show you the completed cake before we go and bake it. So I want you to be able just to see what this looks like. I'm going to open up my existing project. I've got this airport project here. When I go ahead and I'm just going to left click on it. Once I've joined a project, it's going to stay in my list here until I remove it or it's closed. So I'm going to go ahead and just close this panel here so we have a little more real estate. I'm just going to left click on that blue bar or that blue beam there, or I can always left click one time on that icon of the studio. It's just going to close that out, give me more space in here. Now, this is an existing project I've had for I think at least a year, if not 2, that I've just used before. A couple things that I want to show you what this looks like. I have multiple different file types. I told you any type of file you can store in here. So you can see that I actually have some JPEGs. These are actually images of this project that I took while I was out on the job site. Those are all listed here so that we can be able to refer back to them. I have my Word documents here, so I do have some specs in Word file that I can also store and save here. And then I also have my sheets. So when I'm in here, I'll be able to see all of the different PDF files that we're using for our sheet sets. Couple things that I like to point out here as well. On one of these documents here, you'll also might be able to see on mine, you should be able to see there's this little blue icon here. That blue icon basically means that somebody else has that file checked out. So this is essentially like me going to the library, finding that spot on the shelf where that book should be, and that book's not there because somebody has that file checked out. They took that book home. What this means is that my coworker Kevin, that we're working on this project with, he actually has this file checked out, which means that this is only available, this document is only available to me in a read-only mode. So I can open it and see the document, but I won't be able to see any of his current changes until he checks that file back in. You'll also notice in this bottom left-hand corner, this option where it says pending on the left-hand side of my screen here at the bottom, you'll see that these are the documents that I actually have checked out. So if I hover over it, instead of a person icon in that blue circle, it's actually just a piece of paper or a PDF icon right on top of it. That's because I have this document checked out. That means I took the book out of the library. When I came to the library, it's saying, hey, that book's still not here. Make sure you finish what you're doing and check that back in. So this is what a completed project might look like as you go through this process. And so this is what we're going to build today on a much smaller scale, but this is how you can use it. It's basically just being able to store your files here as we're able to go through it. So what we're going to do now is I want to start a brand new one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply, I could close out of this. There's a tab here. I'm just simply going to close out and we're going to build a brand new one. So I'm going to go back to my studio panel here. And this time at the top, I still have that very first button selected that says it's projects. That's still correct. You'll notice 2 icons right underneath that connector icon we use to log in. The first one is going to be a plus sign. It's where we're going to add. The second one you're going to see is a filter. I actually have my filter options turned on just so you can see less projects. That's just the easy way. Anything that I actually started is going to be listed in my projects. Anything that I've attended, I can see. It just helps me kind of filter and see what I'm looking for just a little easier. You can always choose all, and then that sort option is available for you. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a brand new one here. So the way we're going to do this is if I left click on that plus sign, I have that option for new project. If somebody had sent me a 9-digit code, I could select this option that says join, type in that 9-digit ID, and it would open that project up. But for now, we're just going to click on new project. So as soon as I do that, it's asking me to name my project. I'm going to get really creative here. and just type in webinars from home so I know where this came from. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Now, as soon as I do that, you're going to see that my screen's going to change. This main area here is going to be modified. And now it's really just looking for me to fill in with either a new folder, so I can create a folder structure just like I would on my desktop or on a network drive. I can upload certain files, any of the files that I wanted to, or I can upload an entire folder structure. I'm going to do this. This is something that I would do if I had kind of maybe built the start of this process somewhere else, and I just wanted to not have to recreate all of that work, which is what I'm going to do. I don't want to have to type in all of those new folders one by one. There's several of them. Maybe there's several files that are already included in those folders. So I can choose this last option here that says upload folder. Now, as soon as I do that, I'm going to locate either my network drive, which is the place that you can access when you're in the office. And then I can, I'm just going to use my desktop here. I've got this Chicago office that I want to go ahead and upload. When I select to upload here, a couple things are going to happen. You're going to see that those icons went away and I have a new icon, but what you'll also notice is this option called uploading here. This is our, what we call our properties toolbar up at the top here, and it's showing that I have an uploaded status here, and it's showing those 3 dots letting you know that it's still working on it. What you'll also notice on this status here is a couple things. My project name that I have, there's that 9-digit ID. That's what you're going to give out to somebody if you want them to join your session. We'll talk about a couple ways to do that. And you can also see when I created that option. What you'll also notice is this drop down option of upload status. I only uploaded 1 file and a bunch of folders just to kind of save us a little bit of time. If you're uploading large documents and you're uploading a lot of them, cool, totally cool. We can handle it. It'll do it. Just make sure you give yourself a little bit of time. You'll want to be able to keep record of this. It'll give you a status of how many percentage you're being able to upload there. So you'll be able to keep track of all of that. Now, a couple things you might say to yourself, well, hey, wait a minute, I have more files that I wanted to upload, and those 3 buttons in the middle here are gone. No worries. In the far right-hand corner of your screen, you're actually going to be able to see this option called add. Under add, you're going to see the ability with that same new folder. I can still create a folder structure, upload a different file, or upload a folder here. So those add options just kind of moved over just a little bit since you do have something there. Now, the other thing that you'll notice is these 2 icons here. This is a thumbnail version. This is what you're seeing here is a thumbnail view. The line version, or I've heard it referred to a hamburger. If you select on that icon, you're just going to get a list of all those options. So either one of those, whatever is preference for you. I'm going to close this so I got a little bit more room here as we go through. Now, this is great. I have my studio project. I've got all my files. What this means is as long as I have access to the internet and review, I can access these documents here no matter where I go, as long as there's internet and review access. But this is like my own personal library instead of having it shared with people on my project. So what I want to do now is I want to actually be able to add people into this project so that they can look at these files too. The way that we do that is through this invite in icon. So what you'll see to the right of the name of my actual project here is this little person icon with a plus sign. If you are using the 2018 version of Review, it's just a little envelope. It looks like an envelope that you would stick in the mail. So either one of those will work. It's the exact same option here. We're going to choose the ability to invite. Now, if you were with me yesterday in sessions, this dialog box looks very familiar. Same options here. You'll be able to copy that invitation. What that allows me to do is just hit this 1 tap button. I'll be able to go over into, like, let's say, for example, my email and just paste all of this information in. It'll become a hyperlink that they'll be able to follow into my project. I can add an email address one by one, or I can pull from my address book. So I'm automatically connected to Outlook on my computer. And so if I select on address book, it's going to pull up my Outlook address book here. What I'm going to do just to speed up a little bit of time is I'm going to use a group. We'll talk about groups here in just a second. What a group is instead of me typing in the project partners on this this project here, let's say I've got to run a project for all 6 of the different projects that we're currently running. These same 3 people are going to be on every single one of them. I don't want to have to keep typing in their name one by one. I can set up a group. So as soon as I hit this, these are the groups that I currently have set up. I can go ahead and select the one that I want. It automatically is going to add their names. Now, I could put a special message here. This is just going to go in the body of the email when they get it. I'm going to leave that blank for now, but you do have that ability here. I'm going to send an email to all of them by just clicking on OK. As soon as it does, it's going to say, hey, we sent those emails out to them. They all will have received an email letting them know that they can join my project. Now, let's talk a little bit about what I want them to be able to do or not do once they get into my project. And we're going to do that through that settings option here. So those 3 slider bars just above the name of your project is going to be your settings icon. So I'm going to go ahead and grab on that. It's going to show my project settings. A couple things here. If I wanted to change the name of my project, I could do it here. I had a typo or something didn't look right, or we've changed the options. I can change the name of it here. You will see that 9-digit ID. It is going to be static. You can't modify or change that. It'll also tell me how many users and files I have in here. I really like this option for several reasons. I know who's here, but let's say I don't know. There's 8 people here. Who are those 8 people? If that's what the case is, you go to user access. You'll be able to see those users here. So I do have that ability to turn this on. Now, by default, it is always restricted. If you joined me yesterday, restrictor user basically means I've got a bouncer here. You can't come in unless you have an invitation. So that's set on by default. Most of the time, you're probably going to want to leave that on, depending on the type of proprietary information that you have, or you just want to be able to control the flow of who's in and out of this project here. So we're going to leave restrict users turned on, which means you do have to have an email address from me in order to get into this project here. So if you've got a hold of those 9-digit ID, you still wouldn't be able to get into that session. Next over is permissions. Inside permissions, this is where I'm going to be able to set up my group. So you're going to be able to see here this same group icon. It's got a settings option. What it allows me to do is I can add a group, and then I can start to add the members. So I will have to have their email addresses to add them here, but that's how I'm going to be able to set up a group. This is also the same way that I can say, I just want to add an extra person to this existing group, or I no longer need this person a part of that group. I can always delete them. Okay, so that's how you're going to be able to set up and manage groups, is under that settings, permissions, and then this gear icon with that those 3 people icons there. That's how you're going to be able to set it up. I can also change permissions either based on person or group. So let's say that I added those 3 people in that group, and then I also added 15 more people. I could make sure that those 3 people in that group also have different access here than anybody else. So you can change that by attendees as long as they're listed in this list here. So if Kevin, who I worked with yesterday, want him to have special access, I would add his name. His name would be listed here, and then I would be able to change his permissions and leave everybody else's attendees as different permissions. Now, folder permissions is something I actually really like. This is going to be able to let you know who has control over what folders. So I have several folders that I've uploaded and added here. If I choose this drop-down option, I'm going to be able to see all of the different folders that I actually have here. What this option of inherit from parent means is it's going to take on whatever the status above it is. So right now it's currently set to a read status only. That means that all of these other options will just take on whatever is before it, that inherit from parent, that option just above it. If I wanted to hide a folder, so let's say that my revisions folder for whatever reason is something that I wanted to be able to hide, I could do that as well. For the most part, if you want somebody to mark up a document, you're going to have to turn on this read write option. So you will have to change and turn that on if you do want them to be able to come in and make markups. So that's just a little bit about permissions here as we get going. Now, the real meat of Studio Projects is, yes, being able to store everything, but also being able to check out those files. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a file, and I'm just going to go ahead and be able to check it out. So I have it here. There's 2 kind of ways that I can go about this process. If I double click on the file here, it's going to ask me if I want to open it in a split view. I'm going to say yes. What that's going to do is it's going to leave all of my project settings over here on the left and allow me to see my actual file over here on the right. What you will also notice is that all of my actual toolbars are grayed out. I can't make a markup because of this option here that's showing this lock icon. This is basically like opening up the book in the library, but you can't actually read anything here. So I can see it in this read-only mode, but if I wanted to make a markup, I need to check out that document. And the way that I do that is if I left click on this padlock here, and I'm going to left click on the word check out, you're going to see that all of my icons at the top of my screen are now going to be available for me to use. I'm going to grab my tool chest, just a markup that I've used before here. I'm going to go ahead and cloud this elevator just to make a real quick markup here. I have it marked up. Now what I want to do is I want to be able to check that back in so that anybody else in this project is going to be able to see my markup. I do have a couple options here. Check-in is most likely what you're going to be doing when you're done marking up. You're just going to hit this option called check-in. But I can also update a server copy. Let's say, for example, I've made several markups. Kevin needs to be able to get into this document and see the markups that I've made and start working on them, but I don't want him to have the ability to check it out because I'm not done marking it up. I can actually update that server copy, which will do that. I can undo the checkout, which basically removes my footprint from being and checking out this document. But what I'm going to do right now is just this option that checks in. It does give me the ability to enter some kind of comment. You don't have to, you can just skip this step. I like it. I work with a team out in California quite a lot. So if I'm done with something but I haven't finished the document, this kind of allows us to keep track there. So I'll be able to say, you know, I finished on page 4. They've still got several more hours of work to do after I'm done. They'll be able to see that I'm not done, but they'll still be able to have access to mark up that document while I have checked out of the office for the day. So you do have that ability there to add that comment and be able to see it. Now, I want you to be able to see that comment. And so the way that we can do that is through what we call revision history. If I right click on this file here, you have several options. I can check out from here, that's also an option, but I also have the ability to go into what we call revision history. Revision history is going to show me when this file was actually uploaded and added. You'll also be able to see when it was last checked out and who actually checked it out and checked it back in, and I can see that comment right here. I can also have the ability to go back. Let's say I have a several long list here, and for projects that are sticking around for quite a while, you'll be able to see that. I can actually open this revision and I can see what it looked like before any of these other markups occurred with them. I can also restore that revision. So if I wanted to remove all the comments that were made during this check-in process, I can actually do that by coming back to the earlier version saying restore revision. I still have the ability to see this version of the document. It just won't be the latest version. When somebody checks out the file, they won't be able to mark up on this version because I've restored to this version, and it'll continue to stack all of those revisions and those versions in this list here that you'll be able to see. Now, a couple other options I want to point out here as we're closing down for this webinar here is this option to add to a new session. Now, I told you at the beginning that Studio Projects is going to be your longevity here. It's going to be something you're going to be able to store projects from start to finish. Sessions is going to be that shorter, quick time. We need everybody to get in, mark up these documents so that we can keep moving forward with the project. So as I have the files here in my project, I can actually send them to a new session. So it's going to be able to take this file, send it to a session. We'll be able to mark it up. When I'm done and I finish and close out of that session, it's going to update this copy inside my project here. Last thing I like to show is this option called share link. Now, if I have somebody that I didn't necessarily want to give them permission into this document, there's a lot of proprietary information. I just need them to have access to one, maybe 2 different documents here. I could do this option to share a link. I have the ability to share a link for either the lifetime or for 24 hours of that project. I'm going to go ahead and click OK. What I'm going to do here is when I hit the option to copy link to share, I can go ahead and I can open something like a Word document, or I can open up my email, whatever works here. And then what I'll be able to do is this is a hyperlink. So this is what's going to go in the body of an email. I'll be able to actually follow that. If I hold down the control key and left click, it'll take me to the internet, which will allow me to actually download a copy of this file. What they'll be able to see is the latest and greatest. So they'll actually be able to see not just what was there when you sent it, but anything that's been updated in the cloud since it was there. All right, so you do have that ability to check, to add to a session and to share link and that revision history here. I know that was a very quick 30 minutes. Hopefully this was helpful for you. If this is something that you're interested in going into a deeper dive with, I recommend that you guys follow us or contact us at training@bluebeam.com. That's going to be an easy way for you to get to do a more of a deep dive here. We have a couple of options. We have our Bluebeam University. It's going to be our self-paced online learning. We also have the instructor-led. So me or one of the other trainers on our team will be able to do this a deeper dive either on a web training or when we get to traveling again, come out to your company, be able to walk you guys through some of these settings and options and go through projects in a deeper dive. That is our 30 minutes for today for our webinars from home series. Thank you guys so much for joining. Tomorrow we're going to be going over quantity takeoff. Feel free to find us on the events page at bluebeam.com to sign up for that. If you're interested in going through our measurements and calibrating your document, again, I'd like to thank you guys so much for coming. As you leave, as you hit the X on that GoToWebinar panel, you're going to be asked to fill out a survey. It should take 30 seconds. I swear it's super quick. It's about 3 questions long. Just let us know how we're doing, if these are hitting the mark. Rate us, let us know how we're going, and we will see you guys tomorrow for quantity takeoff, calibrating, and measurements. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great Thursday.